Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. But today is the 10th of July 2024 and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin with the Israel-Palestine conflict, the day 278 that has dawned on the hapless Palestinians that A, have nothing to eat, not proper water to drink, no proper health facilities and are forced to flee from one place to the other. The latest in this spate is that Israeli military has asked not asked but has pushed the Palestinians out of Gaza, saying that they are going to attack the UNRWA headquarters. In fact, they have already attacked UNRWA headquarters, and they say that they claim that there are certain elements inside UNRWA headquarters that are against Israeli interests. This said, at least 27 people have been killed, 53 injured in an Israeli attack on a school that was housing displaced civilians in Khan Yunus. 4 schools, ladies and gentlemen, have been hit so far. We know that most of the educational facilities have completely been or partially been destroyed. So are the health facilities. Most of these health facilities have also been completely or partially destroyed. Fuel supply has also been hindered to these hospitals, as a result of which they cannot operate or they cannot use their machinery properly. Add to that, the lack of medicine is adding to the grief of the people who are currently present in these hospitals, who are injured because of the Israelis. They come to the hospitals and don't have the necessary equipment. At least 38,295 people have been butchered by the Israelis since this war began on the 7th of October last year, and around 88,241 people have been wounded so far as well. United Nations human rights experts say that Israel is imposing targeted starvation on Gaza's population, resulting in the deaths of children from malnutrition and dehydration. There is so much to say, so little time, but we all know what the whole gist of the context as far as this war is concerned and where it is all going. Some kind of a positive light at the end of the tunnel in the fact that there might be some kind of ceasefire talks, but the Israeli leaders say that this has to be done without crossing the Israeli quote-unquote red lines. What are those? We'll be discussing that and more in our first segment. Our second segment concerns the US presidential elections, and of course many of the Democrats, leading Democrats also, that have voiced their opposition, should I say, or their apprehension as far as the running of Joe Biden is concerned. Although the main physician says that Joe Biden does not suffer from any neurological disorder or any such disorder per se, but there are a lot of question marks that are being taken up by the Democratic leaders. This said, they do quietly huddle behind Joe Biden's quest for leadership this time as well. But Trump is also not leaving any stone unturned. He is pulling out all his attack strategies against Joe Biden, against Kamala Harris, who many say might, in some case of a possibility, be the new presidential nominee in case Joe Biden decides, if he decides, to step down from that race. That and more is going to be discussed in our second segment, where we will be discussing the US presidential election. Then we will be talking about a $1 billion gift that has been given to the Johns Hopkins Medical School, that will result in many of the students there that have taken loans to undergo their studies that now will be waived off from their fees at the Johns Hopkins Medical School. Now, this is a very expensive school, as you very well know. A lot of students go there on tuition, some on partial scholarships, some on complete scholarships, but a lot of their students are there also because they want to and don't have the necessary resources, so they take the necessary loans. Now, Michael Bloomberg, the former New York mayor and business leader, has given $1 billion to cover the tuition for students whose parents earn less than $300,000 per year, and that is a huge step in the right direction. Finally, a mummified American climber has been found 22 years later in Peru as the glaciers retreat. Glaciers are retreating because of climate change, but what has happened as these glaciers have retreated and have melted, we have found the mummified skeletal corpse of William Stamfel, who was suspected to have died in an avalanche more than 20 years ago. This is the lineup as far as today is concerned. We'll begin with our first segment, and that is day 278 of the Israel Palestine conflict. We've given you a little bit of details as far as this conflict is concerned. To discuss more on that, we've been joined by Mr. Nader Alturk, Deputy Head of Mission at the Palestine Embassy, and will also be joined later in the show by another guest in the studio. Thank you very much, Brother Nader, to have joined us. It had been some time that we had not discussed the Palestine issue, but a lot has happened. Firstly, the Israeli army orders all the Palestinians to leave Gaza City. It has struck the UNRWA's headquarters a day after 27 people were killed and 53 injured in an Israeli attack on a school that was housing displaced civilians in Khan Yunis. 4 schools have also been hit in as many days, and Israel has forced thousands of Palestinians to flee Khan Yunis and Gaza City, and continues to do that. They say that we need to move from Gaza and go to other safe places. 52 Palestinians have been killed, 208 injured in the past 24 hours alone. The military operations also continue, and the life of the people there is in havoc. What are you foreseeing? Okay, but we are going to get in touch with Nader Al-Mulk again. Some kind of a glitch as far as his connection is concerned. Nevertheless, let me give you a couple of details as far as this war is concerned, this conflict is concerned. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that 60% of what he calls Palestinian fighters have been killed since the 7th of October. And I've given you the casualties. 38,295 people have been butchered, while around 88,241 people have been injured. And this adds to the spate of the others. In fact, there's a report by Lancet, which is a very reputed medical organization, medical journal, that says that the number could be much, much higher because of the number of people that are still unaccounted for, those who are buried under the rubble, and the journal says that the actual number could surpass 186,000 as far as this whole war that started on the 7th of October is concerned. They said when it comes to, let's put it that way, a ray of light at the end of the tunnel. There is that in the ceasefire talks that are happening as we speak. But there are a lot of question marks as to whether these ceasefire talks will, this 3-phase ceasefire talks that were started by the US will ever achieve their culmination, because Israel has a lot of apprehension as far as that is concerned. Let's put it that way. It says that it is ready to move forward with these peace talks, but its red lines, quote unquote, should not be crossed, and we all know what these red lines are. Some days back, Netanyahu had also said that he will consider these peace talks if Israel is allowed to continue to move forward and continue with their with its operation as far as Gaza is concerned. But let's see what happens. This is the only talks, these are the only talks that are happening as we speak between these two sides that the US has been pushing since quite some time. Speaking of the US, we all remember that there was United Nations Security Council resolution also that was passed some time back, but nothing happened as a result of that, although that resolution also had asked for a ceasefire between the two sides, but nothing. I mean, the Israeli side does not even consider the United Nations Security Council resolution as binding to what it has been doing. Adding to it, we also know that Netanyahu is in the next couple of days going to address the US Congress, but he was to pass over some European cities. He was to have a stopover in some European cities, but that was what did not happen. Why? Because he's afraid of the ICC injunction that could land him in jail if the arrest warrants are indeed issued. So there's a little bit of that fear factor as far as the ICC decision that was taken out as far as his arrest warrant is concerned. To discuss more of that, we've been joined now back with Nader Alturk. He is our Deputy Head of Mission of the Palestine Embassy in Pakistan. Brother Nader, can you hear us properly?
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to be your guest tonight. Actually, for attack or Israeli attack on the headquarters of UNRWA, according to international law, all the international institutes or organization buildings are under international law protection. So it is not allowed to attack these centers, these buildings, anyway, during war or whatever. It is need to be safe place according to international law. But you know, Israelis always deal that they are above the law, above the humans, because they think that they are unique and elite. So no one can touch them as long as the Americans are supporting them blindly and cover them from being punished from the international community. This is one of the problems. Second, for the international resolution by Security Council, which is speak about ceasefire in Gaza, and Israelis didn't obey it and didn't follow it until now. This is not the first time. We have more than 800 resolutions for United Nations, many of it from the Security Council of United Nations, and the Israelis until now didn't follow or obey it. And the joke, actually, or the tragedy, actually, that the Israelis as a state was established by international resolution, was blinded and was not follow the historical rights of the Palestinians and ignore their rights, ignore that they are stay there since 12,000 years until now, and giving the right from someone from somewhere to came and occupy Palestine and have a state of the land of Palestine. This is the problem of international rules, because the Israelis have a special deal and they feel always that they're above the law, above the international society.
All right. Brother Nader, kindly stay on with us. We've also been joined in the studio by Dr. Farah. She's a leading foreign affairs analyst and she joins us right here in the studios. Farah, thank you very much to have joined us. Last week, Farah, a UN official confirmed that about 90% of Gaza's population has been displaced since the start of the war in October. Now, again, the Israeli military is asking the Palestinians, not asking, let's put it very bluntly, pushing them to move out of Gaza again. Israel issued the first formal evacuation order for part of the city on the 27th of last month and two more in the following days. The ground operation began first in the city's Shujaya neighborhood, but then it went on to the central and the western districts as well, forcing tens of thousands of civilians to flee southwards. Remember, they had they had been displaced to Rafah. In Rafah, they had been told to move back to Gaza. Now they're in Gaza, they've been told to move back. So there's this to and fro that has been happening since the 7th of October. There is a lot of apprehension and a lot of reports talk about the Israeli army trying to ethnically cleanse the entire population of Gaza city by trying to force these hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to evict their city and their homes. What's your take on that?
Thank you, Omar, for inviting me on your show. Well, from all of this that you are presenting a very, picture that is really disturbing to all of us. It kind of indicates that the people of Gaza, Palestinians, they are people of the lesser God and children of the lesser God. Where if we go back to what is happening in the world, there's a bit of discussion going on in terms of when President Biden is addressing NATO and they are talking about what Russia is doing in Ukraine is not acceptable. So that kind of shows that whatever is happening at their end, their life matters.
Okay, before Farah, I continue with that, we'll just have a little question to Nader and then I'll go back to you. Brother Nader, I'll ask the same question that I was asking Farah, and that concerns the 90% of Gazan population that has now been displaced as far as the United Nations officials' confirmation is concerned. Then we all know that the Gazans are again being told, the Palestinians are again being told to move out of the central and the western parts of Gaza. There have been different orders that have been put forward as far as that is concerned. Thousands of Palestinians are fleeing in all directions to avoid the Israeli expanding ground offensive in Gaza. They do not know where to move to, because if they move to Rafah, they're told to move back from Rafah there as well, because there are operations going on there as well. Is the Israeli army, this is the question I posed, but this is what I want to ask you as well, trying to ethnically cleanse the entire population of Gaza city by trying to force these hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to flee their city?
Actually, what is happening is part of the Israeli genocide and ethnic cleansing of Gaza people. The plans from day one until now is transfer or displace Palestinians out of Gaza. Right now, they are making the Gaza people from south, north to be in the middle of Gaza, move all of them to be gathering all of them in the middle of Gaza, Actually, if you are looking to the map, this place is very close to the American seaboard, what was built in a few months and work only and give the opportunity. It was the reason for build that port is to facilitate the entry of the humanitarian aid to Gaza. But we are looking what the Israelis right now are doing by gathering the people very near to that port. It seems that this port going to be used to transfer and displace Palestinians out of Gaza to become refugees again for the second time in their lives, by throw them out of their homeland for the second time of their lives, to become refugees around the world. Israelis are the diplomacy working hard to facilitate the approval of many countries, some Americans, European countries, and even they were speaking about some African countries to accept Palestinian refugees to live in there. One of the names was Rwanda, and you know, British before was going, the ex-government was going to kick out the refugees who are came to Britain, to Rwanda. The new government changed their mind, but still the Israelis have the same plan to throw out the Palestinians out of their own homeland and make them refugees again. So the American seaboard, it seems going to be used for that issue, not for the humanitarian aid, as it was need to be used.
Right. Dr. Farah, would you like to add to that, this displacement, and what does this imply as far as many reports talking about ethnic cleansing of the Gazans is concerned?
Yeah, I think whatever we are getting from the numbers, the killings and all of that, it looks like they are cutting the size of the Palestinians in this territory, and they are bringing them to such a number which is easy for them to manipulate. So ethnic cleansing, this is what we have been saying since the first day of the war, that this is their agenda, that they want to clean this territory from the Palestinians, from the Gazans, and then they're going to do something for their own benefits. And with this port that the ambassador was trying to refer to, I don't see any benefits coming towards Palestinians through that. What I can see is they're establishing a port which they're going to be using in times to come for their own larger goals, and their goals
in the Middle East.
In the Middle East. So it's not about that they are so concerned about the life of the Gazans over there, where they are careful about that they want to receive some humanitarian aid, where they themselves are targeting UNRWA, where they are themselves targeting the United Nations, all entities who are trying to help and support the people who are in dire need of food, medicine, and all those necessities that are required for any people who are going through war situations. I was referring to one of the things that is at the parallel time we are having war in Ukraine, we are having war in Gaza at the moment, where there is this, hypocrisy of the Western countries is very clearly depicted, where they are, President Biden was addressing NATO, and he referred to that we are proud of what it is happening and we will be standing supporting.
No mention so far on Palestine.
No, not at
all. But on Ukraine, yes.
But on Ukraine, but I'm not saying, I'm not justifying whatever is happening in Ukraine is acceptable to anyone. No. Anywhere where the life of ordinary people is affected is a matter of concern to me and to any scholar and researcher. But they need to equate that who is equal. It's human beings, it's human life. And if they are standing in support of the Ukraine, they should stand in support of Palestine as well. They should stand in support of Gaza as well. I can also see that in most of the Western countries, there is now some kind of, a voice coming up, where one of the senators in Australian government, she also resigned on the basis of that when the government says that we will not recognize Palestine, she said she just put her resignation, and she said, no, such kind of government is not acceptable to me. I do not want to be a part of that. Ireland is doing the same thing. Some of the European countries is doing the same thing.
But so you've got countries like Spain that have recognized.
Of course, there are countries, there are pockets, there are which are, some are against, some are in favor of, but this entire war, the way America has supported Israel in the war, I think it has opened larger debates, discussions among the researchers and the youth who says that humanitarian cause, human rights, do they matter in real spirit or not? What is the status of United Nations in that? What is the status of all those entities who kind of demand the rights of women and children needs to be protected, where in the war in Gaza, the children and women, they are highly targeted, where when they are trying to provide medicines, they are targeted. So what actually is happening here? Is it about cleaning this territory from all the Palestinians? But what is the next plan?
To put in as many Israelis as possible in different settlements within Gaza. This is what I fear, and I'm sure this is, you would agree with me on that as well. Brother Nader, coming to you, what are your aspirations as far as these talks that are happening between both the sides are concerned? Do you have any expectation whatsoever of this three-phased agreement that is being pushed by the US, but Netanyahu at the same time tells the US envoy that he's committed to securing a Gaza ceasefire deal, provided Israel's red lines are respected? And among those red lines is the fact that he wants that there is an agreement to its condition to resume fighting in Gaza. What's your take on that, Brother Nader?
Actually, Americans have the power to stop the war in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing, the crimes against humanity from day one. But the problem, the Americans are dealing with Israelis as their own mother, and they are supporting crimes against Palestinians because for them it is one of their LA to protect their own interest in the region. So according to that, they keep their eyes closed and they see the crimes of the Israelis against the Palestinians, and they are speak something and they act in different way. And in the one hand, they said we against attack and targeting the civilians. On the other hand, they are one of the biggest supporters and one of the main countries who are supplying weapons for Israelis to kill the Palestinians. In one hand, they said we are following the international resolution. On the other hand, they are ignoring the Palestinian rights in getting their own independent state and be safe and secure in their own homeland. On the other hand, we are seeing the Americans using the veto against the ceasefire in Gaza from the first months. That time was only civil, thousands killed and injured. But right now we speak about more than 140,000 killed and injured in Gaza. And we don't forget, of course, the people who are missing under the rubble, and of course, for sure they are dying.
We should also, not forget the Lancet report, Brother Nader, that talks about 186,000.
To buy time until he go to Congress in 24 of this month to have a speech to getting more support from the two main parties in the United States of America, because he is right now, there is a rumor that he is negotiate with the Americans. I will agree to ceasefire only in one case, if you can guarantee for me that I will stay and continue my position as a Prime Minister of Israelis, and there's going to be no change in the government. This is the only need for Americans, for the Israeli leadership. So we are bleeding, we are killed only to keep Netanyahu Prime Minister of Israelis. This is the main issue. He right to continue in his position, to be sure that he will not go to the court as a corrupted person and a criminal person. He is trying to run away from the jail by killing more and more Palestinians. This is the issue and the main issue by the Israelis right now.
All right, Brother Nader, we share and we sympathize with you, and we are highlighting this issue as much as we can in order to apprise the world of what the reality of things that are happening in Palestine is concerned. Thank you very much to have joined us, Brother Nader Alturk, who is the Deputy Head of Mission of the Palestine Embassy in Islamabad in Pakistan. Thank you very much, brother. Coming to you back in the studios, Farah, Germany says a deadly Israeli strike on a school in southern Gaza being used as a shelter is unacceptable, calls for a rapid investigation into the incident. One of the rare European remarks that has come as far as that is concerned. Then US Congressman Rashida Tlaib has also responded to the video footage which shows the last moments of an Israeli strike in that Al-Auda school, this is the name of the school, near Khan Yunus, as the young Palestinians were playing football. She says, and I quote, "It's sick how the government of Israel intentionally targets Palestinian civilians over and over again, while the world leaders watch and say absolutely nothing, and some even fund it proudly." And this is a US Congresswoman. This is genocide, targeting civilians like this is a war crime. ICC, where are the arrest warrants? Do such comments, do such statements have any effect whatsoever?
I think when you become shameless, nothing happens, and you don't feel how the world is watching you, how the world is perceiving you. So I believe in the current phase, world leadership, they have become shameless. They just want to continue the way they are continuing the war in Gaza, the way they are killing people in Gaza, children in Gaza. The life of Gazans never mattered to them. But here the question is, who is going to issue arrest warrant against these leaders?
But there are arrest warrants that the ICC has asked for that.
Are they like going to to bring any fruits? Is it going to
huge question mark?
Exactly. There. So are they going to implement it? That was just a candy for the people. Like everywhere, there's, as I said earlier as well, the more they're getting stronger in their strikes against the people in Gaza, the retaliation and the awareness is going to be much more stronger. And if they want to even stop their voices in their own countries, which are not in a war-torn situation, they know what will be the repercussions. Because the world has seen what happened in American universities. The students are there, the faculty is there with them. They are supporting the liberation of the Palestinians. They are against the war in Gaza. They are against the Israeli infiltration in Gaza. So the more they want to stop them, this awareness is getting more stronger in the world. That's the reason I would say that even if they issue warrants or things, nothing is going to happen. All what can happen is if America stops supporting Israel and Netanyahu to stop this war and not to go and kill people in Gaza. That's the only way. But at the moment, America is having its own problems. America is dealing with this election crisis. And in this situation, if they even withdraw their support from Netanyahu, they're a bit shaky, they're a bit worried. What will be the repercussions? So yeah, things are a bit murky at this stage.
All right, things are a bit murky, and that brings us to the second segment of this very show, and that concerns the US presidential election. And as Farah pointed out, that the things are a bit murky because the US is facing an internal, should I say turmoil, should I say pressure because of the political situation that is present currently in the US. Now, to discuss more on that, we've continue to have Dr. Farah Naz with us, but we've also been joined by James Dorsey. He's a political analyst, joins us from the US. James, thank you very much to have joined us. Let's begin with you. Leaders from NATO, which is a 32-nation alliance, are currently meeting and talking, and of course, Joe Biden also addressed the bloc as well with very strong comments, whether it concerns Ukraine or others. But there are a lot of doubts as well over the political future or the quote-unquote most powerful leader in the NATO alliance. Is Biden's decision to stay rattling the NATO because of these apprehensions that are emanating within the NATO as well as the US political system? Do you feel the people are unsure of what is going to happen if Joe Biden continues with his plan to be the presidential nominee from the Democratic side?
The international community are rattled by two things. One is Joe Biden's performance during the presidential debate, which clearly raised questions not only about his abilities, but also, the question of whether or not he actually may have an illness that is impairing him. And the second thing that rattles the international community, or many in the community, is the prospect of a second Trump presidency. So I think what people are looking for at the NATO conference, but also at Joe Biden's other public performances, on whether what happened on the night of the presidential debate was a one-off incident, if you wish, or whether indeed Joe Biden is no longer the Joe Biden that he was, and therefore there is legitimate concern on whether he can one, win an election in November, and two, whether he will be capable of guiding and presiding the United States for the next 4.5 years, or 4 years.
But James, Joe Biden has been very fierce as far as the different places where he's addressed the public post the presidential debate is concerned, saying that he is fine, he wants to move forward, and he is not stepping down. But when you look at the actual political, I wouldn't say turmoil, but situation within the Democratic Party, what do you infer from it? Is Biden going to retain his, his nomination till the very end, or do you foresee some kind of change?
Well, I think what you're going to see over the next weeks, maybe just days, but primarily over the next weeks, is an ebb and flow. With other words, this has to be settled one way or the other by mid-August when the Democratic Party convention takes place. I think one thing that you've already seen is an acknowledgement that virtually all of Biden's public performances since the presidential debate counter what people saw during the debate. And of course, ultimately, the decision is Biden's decision. At least it's Biden's decision until the convention. The convention could go against him, but that's highly unlikely. So whether or not Biden stays in the race is a Biden decision. And the fact that he has been so firm on that he is going to remain in the race, that he has no intention of stepping back for a younger candidate, produces within the party a sense of, if you wish, this is what it is, and we're going to have to work with it. So at this point, I think the odds are that Biden will remain in the game.
All right, James, stay with us. We also have our guest Farah here in the studios. Farah, whether it is the apprehension by the NATO members, whether it be the apprehension by the Democrats themselves, there are so many statements that have come out lately by the different Democrats. How do you see the whole political situation as far as the US is concerned? And if we look at it from another angle, the Republicans are taking full advantage of it. Donald Trump is going full throttles ahead with his remarks against Trump, with his remarks against NATO, with his remarks against even Kamala Harris, who he thinks could take the turn as being the presidential nominee from the Democratic side.
Well, I think American politics is very important to the entire world because America is the sole superpower at this stage. And we could see the way the politics is evolving, the way the discussions are coming out, where the topic for discussion is not who is offering what for the people of America, for the world, but they're talking about age, they're talking about diseases, ailments, and all those things. This does not make sense. And the way President Biden is performing for the election campaigning and all, unintentionally he is making Trump more popular. I'm not saying Trump is better than him because there is no like drastic age difference between the two of them. And to me personally, age does not matter. It's more about performance. It's more about capability, if he is capable enough or not. So in case of his performance so far throughout his term of office, we have seen he faced lots of difficulties in terms of if it was travel, if it was speeches, if it was performance. Yes, he faced difficulties, but decisions that he has taken so far, they were very drastic. If it was about Afghanistan, if it was about Ukraine, or if it was about Gaza, he was very strong believer of war situation. He withdrew forces from Afghanistan, bring them there in Ukraine, engaged in Gaza, and this is how the politics that President Biden has played around. But when we compare that, if someone else take over like Kamala Harris or even Michelle Obama is under discussion, and even Trump for that sake, if we talk about that, so everyone is taking advantage of
what he has offered, because the world and Americans in particular, they are sick of wars. They want peace. Whoever promised kind of peaceful, you know, terms and conditions for Americans and for the world, so they will be supporting that candidate. This is my like feeling, and this is what. But in case of whether President Biden will step down from the race, that's what my colleague has mentioned as well. I don't see that happening because we are so close to the election, and probably, this is my personal opinion, probably he will go to the very end and he would like to see what is going to happen. But with this situation, the way he performed in the debate, will the Americans, will his own political party will support that? It has raised several question marks.
All right. Before we go to the question marks, James, I'd like to understand something from you. I'd like to understand the Trump point of view on all of that. Beginning from NATO, Trump has threatened to blow apart the principle of mutual self-defense that have underpinned NATO since it was founded. In a post, he insists that he had made NATO viable again by forcing European countries to spend more on their own defenses during his term in office. If he says, if it weren't for me as president, there would be no NATO by now. Then he also is, striking the arrows at Kamala Harris. He has been pushing the envelope as far as Joe Biden is concerned. He also says that the 2020 elections were fraudulent. What do you feel? Do you feel he's pressing the right buttons as far as the US voters and US public is concerned?
Before I go into that, if I may, let me just add one thing to what my colleague just said. She is right. The United States is a superpower. But there's an expectation among non-Americans that goes with that is misleading. And that is, Americans don't go to the polls to vote for a president as a superpower. Americans go to the ballot box as anybody else anywhere in the world goes to the ballot box, with the issues that immediately affect his or her daily life, economics, and so on, which is why foreign policy never is a big issue. So I think that one has to take that into consideration. In response to your question, the United States is as polarized a nation today as many other nations are. There are segments of the American public that buy into Trump's grievance politics, that buy into his isolationism. And let's keep in mind that Trump, in his first presidency, inherited two wars, but he did not encounter a situation in which he had to take a decision whether to go to war or not. And we don't know how he would decide in a situation like that, and it may very well be very dependent on what the situation is and what the case is. Given the fact that the Americans at this point are not involved in any wars, Afghanistan is over, Iraq is over, the issue of war at this point is not an election issue. That to Americans who are, like everybody else, are short-term thinkers and have short-term memories, that's no longer a live issue. Part of, it's very hard to predict. It could very well be that there is a segment of the population, of the American population, that either doesn't go to the vote, because at the end of the day, a significant number of US voters don't like Trump and they don't like Biden. Or they don't like Trump and feel that Biden has aged to a degree that he no longer can perform. Some voters of Trump's are protest voters, not necessarily buying into his policies, but are fed up with the system, fed up with the way things work, as you've seen in European countries similarly, and therefore vote for a far-right candidate, basically, and Trump is a far-right candidate at the end of the day, as simply wanting to try something else.
All right. So basically what you're trying to put forward is that there are different sections of the populace in the US that have different sentiments, because of which they will vote for either the Democrats or the Republicans, and of course all the reasons are locally built in. It has nothing to do with the US foreign policy, it has nothing to do with the US relations with other countries, it has all to do with what US's internal politics is all about, and whosoever will move in the right direction as far as all those things are concerned, this is for whom the US public is going to vote. But I'm also going to refer to you the non-partisan Cook political report that has changed its ratings on 3 of the most competitive states, Arizona, Georgia and Nevada, to lean Republican from toss-up, citing shifting voter views of Biden following the debate. And there are so many different polls that have come up. There's a Reuters Ipsos poll also that finds that 1 in 3 registered Democratic voters believes that Biden should quit the race, and there are all different polls that more or less are pointing in the same direction. What do these polls, what do these reports indicate? Are there any real indication of what the people are actually feeling in the US?
The honest answer is, your guess is as good as mine. With other words, I'm not saying one should disregard the polls. One shouldn't. Having said that, the polls are snapshots of a moment. That is what the polls say is the picture at the moment that the poll is conducted. They're not scripture. On top of that, we've seen repeatedly, take France as the latest example, but also the predictions for the 2016 election when Trump won. The polls have repeatedly also proven to be wrong on the day of the actual vote. So I think one has to, take those polls serious as snapshots, but be careful with extrapolating what that means 4 months down the road or 5 months down the road.
To Farah, because I know she's very patiently waiting for her turn. There is a certain report that talks about Trump winning the White House, Republicans winning majorities in both chambers of Congress, and saying that Trump might face few obstacles in the pursuit of major policy changes. What's your take on that? Is it going to effectively prove to be true, false, or is there a question mark regarding that? James, can you hear me?
Were you asking me?
Yes, I was asking you.
Oh, I thought you were asking my colleague.
No,
Sorry.
I will go to Farah after that.
No, I'm sorry. Okay. My sense is that it's not clear to me what policies we're talking about. So clearly, if Trump were to win the presidency and both houses of Congress, he will have a lot of leeway. And if there were problems, those problems would come from within his Republican Party. And it's not inconceivable that a fair number of Republicans who support Trump at this moment, because he's clearly the leading candidate, and he will be at the Republican convention next week, he will be the Republican candidate for the presidency. But once he's in office, you may very well see fracturing within the Republican Party, particularly in a situation in which they dominate Congress.
All right. So let's see how things move along in the next couple of days and weeks. But of course, we'll be waiting from your point of views as well in the coming days when we call on you to discuss more on that respect. Thank you very much, James Dorsey, political analyst, joining us from the US to discuss the latest situation as far as the US politics and the presidential race is concerned. Thank you very much, James, to have joined us. Coming to you.
Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. Farah, a number of Democrats, as I said, are very worried that Joe Biden could not beat Donald Trump in the November 5 election, whether it be the representatives from the 7th House Democrat or other places that talk about the frail condition which Joe Biden is, whether it be Democratic Senator Michael Bennet, who says in an interview on CNN that Donald Trump is on track to win, a Democrat senator saying that Donald Trump is on track to win the election, maybe win it by a landslide and take with it the Senate and the House. Then there's other apprehensions. I mean, I'm not going into the different details of what people are saying, but so many of apprehension, such a lot of apprehension within the Democrats themselves. Why isn't Joe Biden stepping down? What is the cause behind that?
I think you have probably heard about there is some kind of, immunity or some kind of power that is associated to the chair of the President of the United States of America. So President Biden, unfortunately, is going through the same phase where his performance is very negative to the seat demands from him. But he is not ready to accept what actually is happening, which is leading towards, division within the political party, within his own team, and even leading towards unwantedly or unwillingly popularity of Trump, though Trump is not liked by Americans altogether. But still, like the way he is getting more stingy about his position and he is not ready to let go, people are saying maybe he is better than President Biden at this stage. That's the reason there is this division and polarization going on. My colleague was just mentioning that Americans are more interested in what the president is offering to them. Yes, 100% agree. That's what I'm saying. At the moment, the discussion is not about agenda of the leader, but their age, what they have been doing,
and
what
how
was
they
their
could
past.
be performing in the next 4 years if they are elected.
And he was also referring to that probably it's not about the foreign policy and all. To certain extent, yes, but to certain extent, no as well. Why I believe no? Because America is providing lots of financial aid to Ukraine. And if you remember, there was this bill that they were about to pass, and there was a lot of criticism coming from the American people who said that we are ourselves going through economic problems, financial crisis, inflation, and all of that. And in this kind of soaring, rising prices, how can you support funding to the Ukrainians? They were upset with that. On top of that, America is also supporting Israel in its war in Gaza as well. So can they afford these wars where they are spending something extra, then the money that should belong to the people of America is going somewhere else? So they are concerned about that as well. Of course, if they are about to choose a candidate who is going to be in support of wars in times to come, or the money should go out of the country, or the money is going to be invested within, they will go with that. Probably that's the major reason.
All right.
Trump is getting popular as in comparison to President Biden.
Last 1 or 2 questions. I want the answer in a yes or a no. Do you feel Joe Biden will continue to be the nominee from the Democratic side till the very end?
I think so.
All right. Do you feel there's any chance for Kamala Harris?
Well, the way they are performance, yes.
All right. And if it is Biden versus Trump, who do you predict is going to win?
I think it's going to be Trump.
Okay. All right. Thank you so very much, Dr. Farah Nasr, to have come to the studios and have joined us for both these segments. And I hope you'll continue to stay with us during other shows as well to discuss the different aspects of national and international politics. Let's come to our last 2 stories very, very quickly. The first concerns a $1 billion gift that has been paid as tuition for most students at the Johns Hopkins Medical School. Now, Michael Bloomberg, who is the former New York mayor and business leader, has given $1 billion to cover the tuition for students whose parents earn less than $300,000 a year. Those whose parents bring in less than $175,000 per year will also have their living expenses paid. This move affects around 2/3 of the current and the prospective medical students at the Johns Hopkins, which of course is based in Maryland, is one of the most popular medical schools in the country and also in the world. And this is a wonderful donation that will help the lives of those countless students who have taken loans to help move through their medical studies. Finally, the Peruvian police and mountain rescue workers have recovered the body of an American climber who went missing in the year 2002 as glaciers in Peru's highest mountain and surrounding area continue to retreat. And of course, climate change has to be the reason behind that. The mummified skeletal corpse as well as crampons, clothing and driver's license and passports belonging to William Stamfel have been found. Stamfel is suspected to have died in an avalanche more than 20 years ago. The body was recovered on the 5th of July at an altitude of 5,200 meters in Peru. So, well, you see two things here. Is a discovery of the remains of a climber that had perished 20 years ago, and secondly, we see how climate change is also affecting all different peaks across the world. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's news. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories segments are put into us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.